So, you want to make games, you want to design games, but what exactly is a game? How do you define a game? Well, that's really quite simple. I'll tell you what a game is. A game is... It's actually quite complicated. And you might think,
well, a game, isn't that like Monopoly or something?
well, yes, but...
Isn't it a little bit like Half-Life? That's a computer game, right? Where you shoot people up?
But what exactly is a game? Well, let's find out together. A game is a form of art in which participants, termed players, make decisions in order to manage resources through game tokens in the pursuit of a goal. Yes, but not all games are like that. Take the sport of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, for example. Yes, there is art involved, but it's also technical, biomechanical, strategic, like chess. The collection of points is really just a record of the tensions within the game. But it's not exactly the first thing you think about when you're sparring in Jiu-Jitsu. Rather, your immediate goal is to better your position in order to submit your opponent. A tally of points comes after that. How about this one? A game is an activity or sport usually involving skill, knowledge, or chance, in which you follow fixed rules and try to win against an opponent or to solve a puzzle. Okay. This is better. It's starting to hit on some of the fundamental principles of a game, talking about tension, talking about conflict. But let's try to distill this further. Now, this is my definition. A game is an activity within a framework of rules in which the object is to attain a goal or goals. The problem is, with such a base definition, it is difficult to see what exactly we are talking about. Such a definition could be applied to, say, going to work, which is the activity, under a contract of employment, manage cases for a client, which is the goal. But this is missing something special to games. Some say that games have to include some form of competition, and that games have to differ every time you play the game. But let's talk about competition. Isn't there competition when you turn up to your jobs, internally within the office and also externally with other service providers? Yeah, so that's not unique to a game. What about the experience having to differ every time? Variety? Well, that's not necessarily unique to a game either. A job could be various and different every day you turn up to work. So what makes a game so unique? It's more to do with why we play games in the first place. We play games because they are structures we have willfully created or have adopted for entertainment or fun. You might then say, well, turning up to work can sometimes be fun and entertaining, but actually not all the time, if you think about it. As Jesse Schell, author of The Art of Game Design, says, the more obligated you are to do something, the more it feels like work. The less obligated you are to do something, the more it feels like play. Stated differently, it is an invariable principle of all play, that whoever plays, plays freely. Whoever must play, cannot play. So, can we come up with a better definition of what a game is? Let's try this. Games are an exercise of voluntary control systems in which there is a contest between powers, confined by rules in order to produce a disequilibrial outcome. Now, one could argue that only multiplayer games would have a contest between powers or some form of conflict, but I'd like to challenge that idea. Say, with Tetris, even though it is normally a single-player game, tension is created by the contest between various powers. The speed at which new shapes appear, the shapes themselves, the shape of the base at any given time, the points accumulated and earned, and the player, who has to control these contesting elements, including him or herself. Failing to attend to, balance, take initiative on one of these elements will lead to failure. However, do all games produce a disequilibrial outcome? What about games that can end in a draw? In my view, a game that ends in a draw can still produce some form of disequilibrial outcome in the duration of the game itself. How many times have you played chess and dominated the game right up until the end of the game? Yet, all of a sudden, your lead shrinks, and before you know it, your opponent has forced you into a stalemate. Whilst technically no one wins, the equilibrium that was present at the beginning of the game has been disturbed. Greg Costikyan also defines a game as an interactive structure of endogenous meaning. Endogenous just means growing or originating from within an organism. And in the context of a game, this means elements within a game only really have the meaning which are attributed to it within the game. So for example, the rules of chess require that the ultimate goal is to checkmate the king. The king itself is just an object on the board. It's made of wood or plastic or whatever. It has no intrinsic value. I couldn't really sell it on Amazon even if I tried. Anyway, when we sit down to play chess, we have agreed to attribute this game-ending value to the king. Of course, you can augment the meaning of elements within games the more you attach it to things in real life. Say using real money in Monopoly rather than using the fake Monopoly money. Or something more nefarious like shown in the Hunger Games, or more recently in Netflix, the Squid Game. But even with these extensions to real life, they still grow or originate from the game itself. And that's what makes it interesting. Jesse Schell also explores the idea that games must involve some element of problem solving. I think this inherently forms part of the definitions we've been looking at. A contest of powers necessarily requires the solution of problems or barriers in order to win the contest. So I don't think it's necessary to include it as part of the definition. However, some games don't seem to have any problem-solving aspect to them at all. Certain children's games, well, they're based on luck, the roll of a dice, the draw of a card. But that in itself is a game. As Schell puts it, the problem they are trying to solve is, can I control fate and win this game? And ultimately, they realize the problem is unsolvable. And at that point, it is no longer a game, just an activity, and they soon move on to games with new problems to solve. So given what we've considered, we have some idea of what a game is, but it's not easy to define. And it's probably not very easy to define because it's different for everyone. Each person puts a different emphasis on what they want out of a game. And there's so much more to defining what a game is, but I think we have learnt something about what a game is from trying to define it. A game is an activity involving conflict or a contest of powers, and implicitly problem solving. A game is voluntarily confined by its own rules, and gameplay elements originate from these constraints. A game results in disturbing the initial equilibrium set by the game. From this, we can really start to manipulate these core elements of a game. For example, how do we create conflict? What constraints would create an entertaining experience? What imbalances can we create? I'll be covering these ideas on what actually makes a game good in future videos. I've put a lot of effort into this video and researching definitions of games and really trying to consider from fundamental principles, what makes a game unique? What makes a game a game? So please like this video, and if you like what I'm doing, please follow along, more content to come on these topics. See you next time.